Good morning or afternoon, everybody. So I think we'll just go ahead and get started. Just so you know, this webinar is being recorded. So if you don't get a chance to stay through the whole thing, it will be available for download on our client portal afterwards. Additionally, I want to welcome you all again and thank you for taking the time out of your day to learn about how you can automate your accounts payable process within Laserfiche. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Laura Froyam. I'm the sales director here at Cities Digital. I've been with the company for about 10 years, so I've had my hands in a lot of different areas and departments throughout my time here. I started in accounting, so I've got a lot of experience with building out some automation within our organization. Um, and so today I'm hoping that our webinar will help inspire you for ideas for automation within your accounting team and organization as a whole. So I'm not going to share my camera the whole time just because it does make my computer a little bit smaller, but I just wanted to introduce myself and say hi. So let me get that turned off and we'll get started. So today's agenda, we're going to look at process considerations for when you're planning to build out any automation within your organization. Laserfiche has put out a guide called the 5 Steps to Accounts Payable Automation. This is an ebook that is available for download in our download section or on our client portal. Again, if you haven't accessed our client portal yet, definitely reach out to sales@citiesdigital.com and we can get you set up with access. But then from there, we'll take a look at multiple different demos that I have queued up for different ways to automate the accounts payable process within your organization. We'll take a look at just doing some automation with workflow using metadata. We'll also dive into incorporating forms into your solution if you've got maybe multiple offices throughout the country. And then from there, we'll take a look at quick fields and what you can do with quick fields to incorporate that as well. Additionally, as we go throughout the demo, I hope everybody has seen and likes the movie Office Space. All of my memes today are surrounded around Office Space, which is a favorite of mine. So let's dive in. So these steps outlined here in the Accounts Payable Automation ebook, I think are really great steps for you to consider for any automation process within your organization, which is why we're taking the few minutes here to go through them. So the first step is establish ownership. So if you're at the point of needing to establish ownership of your project, you've probably already established a project champion. Your project champion is the one with the vision who sees that there's potential for automation and making things easier because things are hard and we want to make it better. In conjunction with your project champion, it's suggested that you also pair with a project owner. The project owner is going to be the one who is working on the day-to-day activities and ensuring that everybody's working together, things are staying on task, they're taking into account any considerations or bottlenecks potentially that may end up in the process. And then this ownership team should be able to effectively communicate with all members of the staff. So if you're doing something in accounts payable, they're going to need to have some background on accounts payable in that process and be able to work with those team members to generate and gather all of the materials and data that they're looking for. So once you've established your ownership team, you'll move on to securing buy-in. It's important when deploying any successful automation that there be team buy-in. Your champion should be around, be the one walking around the office, painting the picture to the team, getting them excited about the idea of automation and streamlining your processes. So one fun fact, one that you can take from the Laserfiche, or that I grabbed from the Laserfiche Solution Exchange site, Victor Valley Transit Authority states that their payments now go out within 48 hours of the invoice being scanned into Laserfiche, as opposed to the minimum of at least 1 week with the old system. I'd say that's a pretty significant time savings. Speaking of the solutions exchange, let's take a little poll. I am interested in learning who has heard of this Laserfiche Solution Exchange. All right, we'll give it one more second. It looks like overwhelmingly a majority, or 57% of people, have never heard of it and they're curious. So show me. So let's take a quick stop and I'll pull up the Laserfiche Solution Exchange and just walk through it. So this is a really great resource for anybody within your organization that's using Laserfiche. You can come to the Solution Exchange and learn about different processes that have been implemented all throughout the Laserfiche community. So you can search by industry, whatever your industry may be, particular products if you're looking at deploying a new process or you're looking at considering, adding a new component to your system. What have other people done with it? Or by process. So you've got accounts payable here. You can take a look at all of the different success stories and ways that teams are automating their accounts payable process right here through the Solution Exchange. So again, super great resource. Definitely look it up. If you just Google Laserfiche Solution Exchange, it will take you right there. So the next step in the process for building out your automation process is gathering requirements. Again, any project, not just AP, you need to sit down and gather requirements. This is one of the most lengthy time process intensive portions of the automation build out, because you have to sit down with all parties involved, identify the who, what, where, when, and why. You should be asking specific questions about the current process, who's involved, any exceptions, all exceptions, because there's always exceptions, so that they can work towards mapping out the process. So during this segment of a project, users and exceptions should be mapped out on paper. From there, you can map out changes for where automation is going to be easier. During this portion of the project too, you can consider integrations with maybe your team's finance software or purchasing applications. Whatever other components that your team is looking at, you can map those into your process at this time as well if there's nothing currently built out. And then from there, you build and train. Once you have built out the process, typically we see it built out in a demo environment so that your team can test it, make sure everything is looking good, work through some of the kinks. Once you are ready to deploy it to your on-premise or your live solution, you can go ahead and train the staff. Something that our team is capable of helping you with, if you're not sure where to go, is we can help you build customized training materials. So we can help you record videos or customize documentation, anything that you think you might need in order to train your staff and easily onboard team members going from there. So from here, we're going to jump into a demo. We're going to take a look at 3 different processes. So first, again, taking a look at using workflow and metadata to route invoices around, incorporating forms and the forms portal for receiving new invoices and tasks, or receiving new bills, and then quick fields for advanced processing and automation. So let's dive in. So here I've got my Laserfiche application up. I am logged in as the accounts payable team, so I have limited access. I could log in, or if I were an administrator, I again could log in and see a lot more. But here, we're just going to take advantage of workflow. I'm going to go ahead and scan a new document into the system. This is something you can either scan it in, you can use a mobile device and upload it, you can drag and drop from your desktop. There are numerous ways for capture within the system. So I'm just going to go ahead and scan my first document. which is not in my folder, surprise, but that's okay because we'll just go ahead and grab one of these other samples and drag it into the system. So I'm dragging and dropping it into our incoming scans folder. And what incoming scans is going to do is monitor and watch for metadata information that gets pushed in. So incoming scans always has workflow monitoring it. So we're doing ACE hardware. As you can see, this was a drop-down list of vendors. This could potentially be pulled from your existing finance software or some other database or from within Laserfiche. You've got a lot of options for populating this field. We're going to select our document type. Got an invoice. Our date is 5/18. You can either type it in or go through the calendar. Just typing in a few key metadata fields. The amount. All right, so once we have the minimum information filled out for our check, we can go ahead and submit it. So it's going to dump into incoming scans. And then from there, oh, we didn't even get to see it go in because workflow picked it up and routed it to its next section. So once a new invoice is added, this can be added by any team member. The metadata is applied, it goes to AP for approval. So then the department manager is going to go ahead and log into their Laserfiche folder, take a look at the ACE invoice, make sure it looks good. They could add some coding, or you could require coding through metadata at the onset. They take a look, looks like everything looks good, approve. Save, and then X out. So then our invoice has gone away. You can set up considerations within workflow so that if a document or if a new invoice is of a certain type from a certain vendor over a certain amount, you can configure processes within workflow to route it to a number of different people in a number of different ways. In our particular scenario here, the ACE hardware invoice was under our basic threshold, so it doesn't require CFO approval. So now two things are happening. It's going to be sitting in this folder awaiting its check match. Additionally, it's going to create a shortcut within active vendors to all of our invoices. So even though this hasn't been officially processed by AP, the check hasn't gone out, it's still accessible to other team members who may need to reference the invoice. So then, from there, we'll take a look at forms. And this will come full circle. We'll add some checks in. But here we'll take a look at just a basic Laserfiche forms process. So here we've got a forms, as we say, landing page. So if you've got multiple different forms processes, you can lay them out in a forms dashboard or landing page so that you can quickly select the forms processes that are relevant to you. You can set up different landing pages for different departments and things like that. So we'll go ahead and just start our invoice capture process, which I did queue up already. Again, this is a really great solution for if you've got users outside of the main office that aren't actually Laserfiche users, but you still want them to be able to send you Laserfiche documents. So you could set up this form so that it's publicly facing. They can fill out and select their office location. They can, upload a batch or just a specific invoice, fill out some key pieces of metadata again, and then that will go and get pushed into your Laserfiche repository. So we'll go ahead and do 99 designs. Invoice number, our amount. So again, you can upload by clicking the upload and navigating through your folder structure, or you can drag and drop into the forms interface. I'm just going to grab my 99 designs file. and submit it. So then from there, the document gets routed into your repository. It gets pushed to incoming scans right away, where workflow, again, is always monitoring for newly added documents, and then pushes it to the departmental manager for approval. And before it actually goes to the department manager within here, you can set it up so that it goes into Laserfiche Forms as a task for you. So we'll take a look at that here. So instead of using those folders with workflow, you can set it up in Laserfiche Forms. We have seen a big push to move to Laserfiche Forms for all task management just because the interface is a lot easier to use. So if you just log in, you've got a list of all of your tasks that you need to complete for the day. You can set up your tasks to get distributed out in a round-robin fashion. So if you've got a ton of invoices coming in, throughout different locations and things like that, as a new task gets added and is brought in through the process, it can be assigned out to, again, a number of different team members based on whatever criteria you have. Also, when new invoices are added, you can set up email notifications to go out so they don't have to constantly be checking their forms inbox. They get an email saying, hey, you've got a new vendor invoice you have to look at. Log in and take a look. So everything looks good here. We're going to go ahead and approve it. And then this is where it gets pushed back into Laserfiche. And we'll be able to see here, 99 Designs vendor folder was just created as they are a newly added vendor. And there we've got our invoice. Another thing I wanted to point out while in this screen is the metadata information that's pushed into those template fields can also be laid out so that you can easily identify different document types or different pieces of metadata within the folder without having to navigate through a bunch of subfolders. So you can also do your processing in batches. I wanted to show an example of that. So I did pre-configure some of this, but I've got all my samples here. I'm going to drop them into incoming scans. And then from here, workflow is going to grab them, push them out to the departmental manager for approval. So you can also approve invoices in batches. By highlighting them, selecting the batch, and then updating your metadata. From there, any that need to be routed directly to the vendor folders will route automatically. The folder structures will be created, or they'll go to the CFO for approval. So our college hunks invoice definitely hit the threshold. We got to check that out. Make sure that's a legit invoice. All right, that looks good. We're going to go ahead, approve it, and then from here, it will file away into its folder. So we can see now we've only got one more. Approved. And again, any of this template information, the workflow flow, the members involved in the process, this can all be customized to your team's needs. So if you have a short approval process or no approval process, but you still want to auto-file documents away, you can take advantage of workflow to configure, again, whatever your team is looking for. So now we can see in this awaiting checks match, we have a bunch of different checks dropped in here. So let's take a look at quick fields. So for those of you who are not familiar with QuickFields is an advanced capture tool. It can be set up to uh, essentially scan in, break apart, add metadata, autofile, populate information from the text that it sees on a page. So instead of you having to go in and fill out the template fields and do all of that manually, you can leverage QuickFields for that functionality as well. So we're going to go here and just scan our batch of checks. We'll wait for them to come through. So we have our QuickField session set up to identify the first page by using Zone OCR. Zone OCR is a tool which essentially allows you to highlight or circle a particular part of a document or page and use that as an identifying mark in your process. And then from there, it's using pattern matching and database lookup to pull the information from the session that's populated in the metadata field to fill out the rest of the metadata information. And then once we go through and take a look here, we can confirm. These are our scanned images down here. Take a look. It pulled it in from the Austin office location. It was able to automatically figure out which vendor it was with the lookup. It applied the invoice number, the check date, all of that within the system. From here, we will go ahead and store them. I do this all the time. And then what I think is really exciting about this process is that it's going to store the documents in the repository for us. And then as it goes through and processes, it's going to pull the checks that are, or the invoices that are awaiting the check match out of this folder and link them together within the repository. So if you go to if we check out 99 designs, we can see here that the check that was processed is located within the folder. And then if we take a look at the links, we can see there are associated documents related to this check. So we can see here that the invoice is linked. So even if these items weren't maybe stored in the same folder, you would be able to link them. So if you look at the check, you'll always be able to, again, look at the invoice too. Really easy to help you find the documents that you're looking for. And again, Workflow was able to build that for all of them, link them all automatically just based on the metadata information. So again, here we've got our check. Now we're going to check out our invoice. We got our invoice. We can check out our check. So they're in sync. And that's nothing that your team needed to do or had to do manually because Workflow managed it for us. So from here, we're going to jump back into the PowerPoint and we're going to take a look at a typical AP process and where you can automate things along the way and what tools and resources you would have available to you. So always your invoicing or your AP process is going to start with capturing a document, whether that document, again, be a digital file, a paper file. You can capture it a number of different ways. You can scan it, upload it, take a picture. You can use the mobile app, again, to take a picture and send it right into your repository, or use the mobile app to connect it to a Laserfiche form. You can use Import Agent to monitor a network folder. So again, if you've got locations outside of your home office, but you need those invoices jumped into Laserfiche, Import Agent can be set up to monitor a specific folder on the network and pull documents in automatically. Additionally, with any of these options, import options, you can set up specific profiles. So every time a document comes from, the folder on the network called invoices, it automatically applies the metadata template. You could potentially use Workflow to parse out some of the information by the use of using tokens and then have it auto-file away. The next step is typically just adding metadata to the documents. So again, what we took a look at just a little while ago was the manual option of just going in and using maybe drop downs or typing in information to index the information that we need. You can use quick fields. You don't need to use quick fields solely on checks. You can really use it on any type of document as long as there's some standardization to it. So if on a regular basis you are getting invoices from the same vendor, so they're formatted the same way, that would be a really great use case for quick fields, because you can just scan that stack of, that vendor's invoices all at the same time, use quick fields to parse out the information, do a database lookup to your finance software, and then populate the metadata fields and auto-file it away. And then you have routing decisions you need to consider as part of the AP process. So again, you can manually update that metadata information, and that's going to route the document to where it needs to go. Workflow can automatically make decisions for you. As part of these routing decisions and approvals or rejections that go out, you can also set up email notifications again. Or you can have it, if you change a metadata piece within the Laserfiche application, it can push to forms and create a task for somebody to complete, or take a look at this document, it needs approval, or why did this get rejected, figure it out. Also within workflow and forms, you have the ability to generate reports. So you can see where documents are getting held up in your automation process, and you can run statistics on, a report that, or a task within the process that's, likely to become overdue. You've got a lot of options. And then you can also do custom activities. So if you aren't getting exactly what you need from the toolbox within Laserfiche, you can, build out some custom activities, or again, source the city's digital team to help with that. The task assignment, again, a lot of these things go hand in hand and can be handled through a combination of just workflow or forms. But again, you can manually assign tasks. You can have emails go out. You can have folders set up within the repository. So, your team is trained on going into that folder. This is your job. Every day you log into the departmental manager folder, look at what needs to be approved, and get through your invoices. And then you have the processing payment and data push or integration portion of the process. So again, you can use workflow and the ODBC or outside database connection to pull information from your finance software. We've also got the ability to export a CSV or Excel document from Laserfiche and push that into your accounting software. So again, at the onset, when we scanned in those files, we added metadata information. This list of details can be exported and then potentially pushed into your finance software. You can also use a tool called the Laserfiche connector. Laserfiche, if you're not familiar with the Laserfiche connector, it's an easy one-to-one integration tool allowing you to set up either a workflow to be kicked off, maybe image enablement. So if you were in QuickBooks, QuickBooks doesn't store an image of the actual invoice or bill that comes in. And so you could use the connector to allow you to pull up that vendor's folder specifically, and then you could see those documents right there. In case there's line item information that's included on the invoice that's not contained within your accounting system. We've also got custom integrations that are available with things like Springbrook or Great Plains. There are definitely a lot of them out there that we have worked with, that we've built some customizations for. So if you are interested in integrating your finance software or really any application as part of your AP process, you can definitely reach out to our team and we can help you through that. and then as well as the custom scripts to push and pull data from there. So then you've got your archival and retrieval. You've gone through your entire payment processing portion, and you've got your check cut, and now you want to find the documents really easily. Maybe your team is using records management. Maybe you're not, but you just want to be able to easily find the documents and associate them. So as we saw earlier, you can create links within Laserfiche. And again, most of this is basic functionality that your team, if you're on a United or Avante platform, already have access to. But you can create those links. You can set up customized searches so that if you're searching for the same type of thing every time, you've got that saved search that can be customized to just you, or you can push it out to the entire department. You can, again, use connector to do that image enablement from your other applications. If you're implementing or you're using the records management component of Laserfiche, you can have workflow route it to the appropriate records series and apply the record series information to it so that it goes through the appropriate retention schedule from there. And then you can access your documents from the web, the mobile application, or the desktop. So essentially wherever you are, as long as you've got a connection to your network or a web or the internet, you can get to your files really easily. And then additionally, every document that you add into the system becomes fully text searchable. So even if you don't apply metadata, it's really easy to retrieve your documents by using the full text searching capabilities within the system. So, a surprise! I have a surprise. So, as we all know, Laserfiche does not, or the accounts payable process does not solely revolve around just getting an invoice. Sometimes you've got purchase orders, sometimes you have to go through a whole contracts process, sometimes you're onboarding new vendors. There's a lot of different things that can go into an accounts payable process to bring it full circle. So we're going to take a look at another demo. This is probably one of my favorites. It is going to start with a contract, or we're going to onboard a new vendor. Then we're going to go through the contract approval process. And then we're going to take a look at adding in a new invoice for that particular vendor and how that all looks within Laserfiche. So let me jump back over to my demo machine. Again, I've got a contracts landing page here. So we're going to start with the process of onboarding a new vendor. In this particular scenario, we have set up this process so that when we onboard a new vendor, it is also going to give that vendor access to Laserfiche, to the repository, to the forms application, so that they can interact with the contract approval process so that nothing gets lost. So instead of going and emailing back and forth, you can use some of the new Laserfiche subscription licensing types, incorporate that to a RIO system or a subscription model system, and again, give your vendors access. So if you've got a lot of vendors, you've got a lot of options. So I'm going to onboard Google. Because I use Google multiple times a day, every single day. Got some basic information. This would be a form that you would send out to your vendor. Say, hey, you're a new vendor. I need to collect some basic information. You could have them submit documents to you through this form. You know, you can collect whatever you want. Again, everything you see here is customizable, so you can grab as much or as little information as you need. Colors, fonts, logos as well can all be added to this process. So once we submit it, our IT team is going to get an email notification saying they've got a new task that they have to complete. in Forms. So we'll log back into the Forms tasks here. We've got a contract for approval. A majority of what came in comes in as read-only, so your team can't accidentally change any of the information that Google submitted to you. So we're going to apply a username and password. So again, this would go to your IT team. We've got a new vendor that we need to get configured within our system. Please grant them access. They would go into the administrative console, grant access, type in the appropriate information, and then hit complete. And then from here, the vendor is going to get their username and password automatically emailed out, as well as a link to participate in the new contract approval form. So I'll just wait a second here for those to pull up. So again, here's just one example. You've been added as a new contract vendor. Please use the link to submit your contract submission along with your username. They get a separate name with their username from their password to try and keep it secure. So again, this is just another Laserfiche form. You can collect as much or as little as you need. Internet for all. Who doesn't want free internet? I'm gonna maybe put this over to development because they probably need to figure out how to get everybody free internet. We're gonna make it renewable because we want that to be a long-lasting free internet starting today for a year. From here, again, we can upload some contract details. So let me just get my contract samples queued up here. They can upload multiple files, and then we'll go ahead and submit it. So then from here, it goes into a forms inbox of maybe a departmental manager or another user who needs to approve the new vendor that comes along. So we'll go ahead and click on our contract for approval. And also that an email can go out automatically so that they just click a link and it brings them right to their forms task list. However you want to configure it, you've got options. You can take a look at all of the information. You can change it. Free internet. Yes, yes, I want that. Take a look at the attached documents. Everything looks good. You can go ahead and approve it. So once the contract has been approved, if we jump back into Laserfiche. So again, here in this particular view, we're logged in as the accounts payable person. They've got nothing to do with the contracts process, so we'll go ahead and log in as another user within the system. So as you can see, we've got a lot of other folders available now. Look at our contracts. We've got a new contract for Google. Free internet for all. Here's all of our documentation within the system. Additionally, as part of this process, when a new contract goes out, we require signatures. I don't know about you, but we require signatures. So as part of the process, again, it's going out through workflow automatically through our DocuSign integration. So an email goes to our vendor. They're going to click on it, review it. DocuSign walks them through where they need to sign. Click the signature, sign it, sign, finish. And since free internet for all is a pretty substantial contract, we're going to require 2 signatures. So again, as pre-built in this process, DocuSign is sending out a contract for signature to 2 different people. DocuSign. Once the contract is finished, it's going to get pushed back into our Laserfiche repository. And then we will be able to, it's going to take a second here, but we'll be able to pull up our signed version within the repository. So you can see here we've got 2 signatures. Then, as part of this contracts process, here's the file. It popped in. It just took a minute. You can have the system set up to automatically rename this too. So if you don't want it to say sample 1 when it comes in, you can definitely configure it to say completed contract on such and such date, something like that. Workflow can manage all of that for you. So then the next part of this process is getting and receiving an invoice from our new contract or from our new vendor. So here we're going to grab our Google invoice. We'll see here that the Google folder doesn't currently exist since we haven't received any payables from them. I'm going to dump it into incoming scans. Again, you could scan it, email it, import agent could bring it in. Our vendor is getting populated from a drop-down list, which is pulling from a database. We've got an invoice. We can apply the invoice number, which I don't remember. 5123. And then the date of the invoice is today. And then there you have it. We dumped it in incoming scans. It's going to our departmental manager for approval again. Once they hit approve, it's going to go to our CFO because this is a pretty substantial invoice. Here it is, newly added. Keep opening the document by accident. All right, so now if we take a look at our Google folder after it finishes up here, or apologize, we'll refresh. Since this is part of a different process, it doesn't necessarily fall into the folder structure that we were working out of before. So again, this is just another way that you can list out your vendors. You don't have to have them alphabetically like this. You can just have them by vendor, and then they'll sort alphabetically. Open it up, take a look at the invoice, and there's our invoice. It's been renamed. Originally it was Google Invoice, but now it's by the date in an invoice within that vendor's folder. So that is the full circle contract management to AP surprise demo that I had queued up. I do have one more that I personally really like because it's what we use internally. So again, as part of the accounting process as a whole, it's not just about AP, it's about AR. Something that we come in and see frequently is, you are generating a lot of invoices for your clients, and you don't have an approval process in your finance software. So for instance, our team here at Cities Digital, we're using QuickBooks, and we needed a better way to store our documents within Laserfiche so that everybody had access to them, because not everybody has access to your finance software. And then we also needed to build out an approval process. So what we did was set up a really easy process within QuickFields, or within QuickBooks. So essentially, when we have a batch of invoices to print, pull it up here. We've got a bunch of invoices to print. We're going to just snapshot them to our Laserfiche repository. As I mentioned earlier in the demo, with any addition of new documents into your system, you can set up some default profiles. So I'm going to snapshot this, and then I basically need to hit OK, and then it's going to dump into the appropriate folder with the document named the way I want it, and I don't have to do anything else. So then I can click OK. From here, they are going to route within our repository for approval. So 1 second here, and I'll get this fixed up so we can take a look. All right, so we've got ours configured in business processes, taking a look at the invoices ready for review. So this is where our new documents were just printed. They have been, an email notification has gone out. There's new invoices that need to be checked out and approved. You can click the link, it'll bring you right to the documents within Laserfiche. Then you can go through and take a look. The really cool part about this process is that if there's an invoice that is not acceptable or something looks a little hairy, we're going to add a sticky note and say, what? I'm not sure about this. And then we're going to add the invoice number to the metadata information. But the rest of them look good. So we're going to go ahead and start the invoice processing workflow, save our file, and then we'll see here, if we hit refresh a few times, our documents are going away. What's going on? So any not approved invoices get routed to a not approved folder for further review. If you go into the separate and file section, you can just go in and a team member can double check that all of the metadata is applied appropriately to these. So here I'm just going to ensure we've got the appropriate client selected, which I am doing on my other screen since we have a drop-down list of all of our clients, which I'm not sharing. From here, I'm going to just dump these into our incoming scans folder, because if you don't have an incoming scans folder, you should get one. The documents have already gone away, so we can't see them, and they're getting filed away appropriately in our client files. A really sweet part about this process, though, is that on our client files, within our client files folder, let me show you here, we have subcategories or subfolders for billing or contracts. But if we take a look at the metadata on our billing folder, we have it set up so that we know if a client wants to receive an invoice via email or if they prefer to see it via paper. So if you are a new client with us, you've signed a contract, you've probably seen the option to sign up for email invoicing. If that's not something you currently have set up with our team, but you're interested in it, please just email accounting@citiesdigital.com and we can get it set up. But from here, once the documents have been filed away into the system, what happens is an email automatically goes out to our accounting folder. Our accounting team gets this email basically stating here's a new invoice that needs to go out. Double check that the invoice correlates to the appropriate contact information, and then send it out. So from here, we just forward the document, copy the email, fix it up a little bit, delete some of the extras, and then it gets sent off to our client. And instead of the invoice getting routed to an intermediate person, once you get comfortable with your process and you find that after numerous testing it looks good, you can have it set up so that instead of going to accounting@yourcompany.com, it automatically gets routed to that end user so that you don't have to go through this process too. But that helps us keep track of who wants an invoice email or who wants a paper one. And then if they want a paper invoice, it just routes to a for printing folder and then it gets printed out from there. So that concludes all of the demos that I had. So I didn't mention this at the beginning, but if you have any questions, please feel free to type them in the chat here and I will do my best to address them. And we can go from there. You can definitely just reach out to sales at Cities Digital, and it's something that we could potentially have a call on and talk about how a process may look similar to any of these within your organization. So don't hesitate to reach out to our team. Just want to thank everybody again for your time. Thanks for sticking with me through the end. Hopefully you were able to see some automation that was able to spark some ideas for what you can do within your organization. And don't hesitate to reach out to our team to help you configure or put together a process for your team. Thank you.